live from downtown San Francisco by way of Alameda, California. It's time for Zig in the Zone with Ralph Zig Tycho.
Wow, what an introduction. Paulie B. I can't talk with this mask, but I just thought I'd get into COVID mode.
You are in COVID mode. You had a little bit of the little sniffles going on earlier.
I know. We'll risk it because I can't even understand myself with the mask. Paulie, it's good to have you back as the producer, or it's good to have me back as your production guy.
It is good to be back in studio with you, Zig. It's always a pleasure. It's always hanging out. And the last couple shows you've had have been pretty content packed.
Right.
And you've had some really great conversations that I've been able to be in. It's really a pleasure to be a fly on the wall and see what's happening with your show. And so it warms my cockles, sir.
Well, what's happening is an increase in production over the last few weeks. We're getting it down.
We are.
It's like I say, this is the 8th show, and Yogi Berra was number 8, by the way. I'll just use that.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm a baseball nut.
You are. I mean, you kind of okay. So I eat, sleep, and whatever. Comedy, right? Stand-up comedy. You're the same with baseball.
I am the same. I have to admit, as the season gets close to being a reality, I'm happier.
Right.
I have it on the radio constantly. MLB Network has a thing where you can get any game anywhere, home team, away team, announcers. And sometimes I just put it on the background as babble.
Right, as white noise, if you will.
Right, and I'm not a big baseball on television person because you just have to be focused or you wouldn't know what's going on. But on radio, the announcers can, by the tone of their voice, tell you when something is important. So I can do whatever I'm doing, listen to it in the background, sometimes tune in mentally and sometimes not.
Right.
But it's something I miss during the winter, and I'm glad baseball season is coming. Spring training is here.
It seems like with baseball, it's transcendent for you a lot. Like when the season comes around, even just like maybe the smell of the grass.
Absolutely.
And you're like, you like instantly takes you back to your childhood in New York.
Right. Or listening to a game on the radio from the 1960s. YouTube has a lot of...
Isn't that the greatest thing?
That is the greatest thing.
My dad watches a thing. He has the ESPN Classic channel. And so he's like watching the Super Bowl, like the Niners Super Bowl from '84.
Right.
And he thinks it, but he has dementia. And so he thinks it's this year. But anyway, sometimes.
But, he can watch it. It's all YouTube. It's all archived.
Right.
And you can bring it up whenever you're in the mood. If you're in the mood for football, if you're in the mood for basketball.
Right.
Great games. What a terrific technological world I was thrown into. I mean, I'm a dinosaur. You've been technically savvy all your life. You grew up in a different generation.
Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid in the early 70s, I'm a product of the 60s, child in the 70s. I remember my mom coming home with the first video game console, which was Pong. Like for like Christmas, like 1973-ish.
I remember
or
that.
So I was only like 6 or 7 years old, but I remember us getting a Pong. And I've been ever part of the technology race, if you will, all my life. And I've always embraced technology, even here at the studio, where in a lot of ways, I'm still that analog guy, but I'm in
Mhm.
that digital world, and so I've had to adapt. And so, yeah, it's a different life. I've always embraced it as we go, but things get a little bit more. Well, they say more intuitive, more easy, or no, there's just a lot of more. It's just so different than when we were growing up.
Okay. Paulie, let me ask you this. I was, when I came into the studio earlier, there was your mother's birthday um, tape or
The podcast from like
podcast.
2017.
And happy birthday to your mom, by the way.
There we go.
I know it's belated at this point. But Patrick Collin
Yeah.
was your guest, and you tell me he was an ongoing guest on your podcast for a long time.
Yeah, he was a staple for about 7+ years.
Oh wow.
And he would call what he would call during the 420 shout out. And the 420 shout out for us was really at 420 his time because he was advanced. He was in New York for most of his time that we knew each other. And so um we had different incarnations. I've been at different studios, including the one we're sitting in now. But the other one, I mean, we would talk to him at 120 our time, which was 420 his time. And we would talk for an hour. We would talk about an hour every week on air and discuss anything and everything. I guess you would call it kibitzing.
Kibitzing. His ideology is so much like mine. An independent Democrat who just couldn't understand why Ronald Reagan lived.
Yeah.
And he hit it right on the head on the podcast I listened to, talking about Reagan and his upbringing. Reagan was a Democrat. He was a union guy with the Screen Actors Guild.
Right.
And somebody got to him. It was some speech that he was asked to give um, for Westinghouse, and he became a media whore with that. And he found it attracted the money in California.
Right.
Give me some idea what you think is the reason the country went, because it really screwed us all up from a sociological standpoint. We're screwed when the rich don't pay taxes in this country, and it's the middle class that's supporting the poor.
Right.
There's gonna be a lot of problems. The rich have an obligation to keep the poor middle class, to bring them up,
Right.
so that we don't have to be jealous and fight over things. If everybody has good medical care,
Right.
enough to eat, they're sheltered, and their kids are educated, what else is there?
I mean, that's the basis of a good foundation for society, right? Isn't that kind of where we all need to be at some point?
Absolutely, but we're so far from that that at times when I stop to think about it, it becomes fucking depressive.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, so that's kind of where we are in this country, no matter what party you belong to. Um, being a Republican isn't what it used to be, and being a Democrat isn't what it used to be. They're so far, even being a centrist isn't what it used to be.
Centrist is right wing at this point.
Right. And so everything is so off kilter that I don't even know where we go in this country with this stuff, because that's why Trump did so well, is that every 4 years there's a group of people in our country that are disenfranchised with how it's going, and they're going, well, I'll do anything to change the course we're on.
Well, I for one was very disenfranchised by Hillary Clinton, and I thought I think back, I thought when Trump was elected, this is going to be some good drama.
Right.
But I didn't expect tragedy. And the biggest thing that Trump did that was absolutely criminal was that he paid no attention to the COVID thing. And there was
because he didn't want it to go down on his watch. He was watching a train wreck.
Right. It was his economy and it wasn't fitting in and what have you. But you know what? Literally thousands of people were killed unnecessarily.
Oh yeah.
Died unnecessarily.
Oh yeah.
And
it's basically based on misinformation. And yeah, we didn't have. So I think the CDC did what they could in light of things. When I look things back in retrospect, they didn't have all their shit together, and yeah, it changed a little bit, but this virus was a moving target.
Right, the virus had never been seen before.
Right.
I don't blame the CDC. What I do blame is Trump wasting time. Why not put medicine up your butt? What was that about?
Oh yeah, right. Or bleach or whatever.
Bleach. They had to tell you how dumbed down we are. The bleach companies had to put out a warning.
Yeah, don't actually do this.
Right.
What was it? The ivermectin or whatever, the stuff for horses. They had a run on it. The antibiotic for horses because somebody said it and he ran with it for a little bit and yeah.
Right. And you would think that they should, in some respects, let people be and call it natural selection. If they want to put bleach in their butt, that's their prerogative.
Right.
But the problem is, who's paying for all of this?
Right.
And paying dearly. I joke about natural selection. It's a big part of it, but it's tragic when we lose someone.
Right. It is, and literally even in New York City with all those, they were literally keeping, bodies in like big old semi-refrigerated trucks because they couldn't keep up with the number of people that were passing.
In Jackson Heights, which was where I grew up,
right,
which was the center of it all, they had trucks. They had no place. They were portable morgues, and people were dying right and left. So that's what I blame Trump the most for. That's what I blamed him the most for until January 6th, back a couple of years ago. He tried to take over the government, and it's painfully clear to me after the Supreme Court's rulings, he's going to skate. They're not going to send him to jail.
No, but he's going to have to pay. He's not going to have the life he did. That's for sure. Because look at what they're doing with all the, what is he? $454 million at this point between some of the cases that he currently has. The judges are not letting him. He can appeal as much as he wants, but he's gonna have to keep paying interest on it. They say even right now he pays like over $140,000 in interest a day on that.
Is he just counting on being reelected and pardoning himself?
Mm-hmm.
So what will all this debt be free? He'll be debt free after that?
No, so the Supreme Court is actually listening to arguments that will allow him to, basically they're going to hear the argument that a sitting president cannot be convicted of a crime. And one of the the prosecutor put it to the defense team. Okay, so if we had a sitting president and he wanted to send in SEAL team whatever to assassinate his campaign rival, would he get arrested? And they wouldn't answer it because they're trying to see, literally, it's kind of like what he'd said before he got elected. He said, I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and not get convicted. And he's basically, it looks like he might have been true. He might have been right. Because if he's nominated a lot of these people into the Supreme Court.
Kavanaugh and the likes.
Right. And so those guys are going to back him up. It's the other ones. I think her name's Ketanji. There's a few of them. So there's going to be a couple of them that are going to lean our way, but that's just scary.
Well, what's scary is that Long Don Thomas, a Supreme Court justice.
Oh, you mean, yeah.
Yeah, he's crazy in his own right, but he's married to a woman.
Yeah, Ginny Thomas, yeah.
Tell me about her ideology, Paul.
She's the one that was basically texting people during the insurrection on January 6th. Things about, I'm trying to remember all the stuff, but she was basically doing it to the senators and stuff. But she's really, wow. I want to actually quote something instead of half-assing this one, Ralph. But
Paulie B.
Yes, sir.
Looking it up. That will be a segment. Looking it up in the zone with Paulie B.
So she was it was Mark Meadows that she was sending text to, and basically it was things like I'm trying to see what the quote was. So one of them was, I did not have a good call with him today, and worse, I'm not sure what is left to do or say. I don't know what is truly understood. He wrote to Meadows on January 10th. I'm looking, sorry. So it's, and it's funny because Clarence Thomas is all over the internet right now. One of the guys, John Oliver, that does a Sunday show on HBO called Last Week Tonight.
Didn't he do documentaries?
He kind of does kind of a satiric look at the news. It's kind of like a lot of the monologues that the late night show guys do, but he does a 30-minute segment every week. And so the one where he exposed Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas on the take, how much money they make. They don't make much from Supreme Court, but they make a lot from all the other stuff that goes along with it. And Clarence Thomas was getting like trips to all these different crazy places and being able to stay. And so it wasn't really the money, it was the perks. And so I think he only makes like $100,000 a year as a Supreme Court judge or something. And there should be a ceiling on how much they make, right? Because they're really just trying to pass the laws that shape this country.
Well, there are two schools of thought on that. If you get a CEO in business, there's no limit on how much they can make. And wouldn't that be good
right.
for society to have the Supreme Court justice make as much money as they deserve? It takes a lot of skill to do what they're doing.
Right.
Just as it takes a lot of skill to be a CEO of a business.
Right.
So why shouldn't they be rewarded? And maybe it'll stop them from being on the take to lobbyists and what have you.
Right.
If they have nothing, if they can't be bought. You hear that in political commercials. Robert Kennedy Jr. talks about that. He can't be bought. And that's a big selling point.
It is. I think Robert Kennedy Jr. has a lot of issues going on, too. I don't like any of the candidates. Somebody was talking about it on a show yesterday, and they were talking about they were bashing Biden for being so old, and we all kind of said, well, they're both old. Believe me, country, if you had some viable candidates that were in their 40s.
Hey, we should play some of our old podcasts with Jerry Feidelberg, who's old as well, older than those two.
Right.
And it's not your age, it's what your aging has done to one.
Right.
And he's got his seichel, his brains, intact. But then again, how many Jerry Feidelbergs are there?
Right.
And I would say I'm nowhere near his age, but I couldn't handle the rigors of being a president, even if, for the most part, you're the president. But if you delegate things properly and you have people around you who are capable, it can be a pressureless job if you have a team around you.
Right.
And of course, Trump has deliberately put off anybody with a brain in his administration. So, but he's an egomaniacal person to begin with.
Right.
I'm going to ask you, Paulie, how do you see this all playing out? With the trials, the election. Can we possibly have a president serving from prison?
No, of course not. But here's the thing: is that they're getting pretty smart. So what did they do? They ended up delaying these cases so long that we're going to end up having an election in the middle of these, the conclusions of a lot of these. He could be already voted in by the time he starts getting convicted on some of this stuff. So we're talking about the January 7th or January 6th insurrection stuff. So if the Supreme Court actually rules on it and it's closer to the election, that might be his get out of jail free card.
Oh.
That's why it should have been done. It should have been done a year ago. They shouldn't have delayed it so much. And then for the Supreme Court now to pick it up and willing to do it, it's kind of like, yeah, it's totally like they're, it was totally like, it's almost like a coup. It's almost like they had, this is the grand plan. This is what they thought.
How did this country get to the way, it's a rhetorical question, of course.
Right.
How did this country get to this point in our lifetimes?
Right. That's a great question. But yeah, you're right. It's rhetorical. There's so much BS that has brought us to this point.
Right.
There's not any one given thing. There's a line or a bunch of things that got us to this point. And it's funny because I think we were, as a country, we were going in a really solid direction coming out of my youth. And I thought, okay, it looks like we're going to evolve. But some of these things that, like Roe v. Wade, having a black president, having possibly a woman president.
How do women put up with the crap, the rest, taking over people's bodies?
Right.
Insurance companies making decisions on what's right for not just women, for people who live and die based on some clerk's decision not to give the coverage.
Right.
And that's big business.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make sense why some of this stuff has happened, and I see where the inner workings are happening, but in a lot of ways in this country we're going backwards. We're not taking care of gun control. gone back on abortion laws. Um, Half the country, or at least 40% of this country, doesn't see what a narcissist Trump was, and they want more of it. They want more of it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so,
Because he speaks in a louder voice than Biden. That appeals to certain people.
oh yeah,
He
they're like,
screams. Well, that's the kind of president that's sticking up for what?
right,
Um, which leads me to do a segue, and let's talk about the one thing that I enjoy talking about, and that's baseball. A little
right.
bit.
Let's get right into that.
You, if you don't mind, I'm going to talk a little bit about my affiliation with Topps baseball cards.
Yeah, I was going to ask you more about that too. Because, looking at certain things that you have online, including your own Topps baseball card.
Yes. Well, it isn't a Topps one, but it's a reproduction. And ironically, having these reproduction cards really doesn't sit with me unless it's a Ralph Tycho card. um, but let me tell you a little bit about me in 1981. I was born in 1946.
Okay.
So I was approaching my middle years.
Right.
And I was a salesman. I was an insurance salesman. I had an insurance agency, and things were going along well, except that I always seemed to make a little less than I spent. So, coming from the point that I was a poor money manager, and once one becomes a poor money manager, generally they don't recover.
Right.
Interest gets them, reconsolidation of loans get them, and their lives are just made up of being a hamster wheel, racing the check to the bank so it won't clear, and
right.
or it won't bounce and stuff like that. Now I'm combining this with my dad dying on his day of retirement. Literally, he worked all those years, became disabled. He was a diamond dealer, got to the point that he couldn't differentiate the cost of a diamond. He couldn't do his deal. So he had to retire. And he saved his money all his life, and things were good. But his health, he never lived to see retirement.
Right.
And that affected me to the nth. I couldn't believe that this is a man who literally worked every day of his life except Sunday, and didn't get to benefit from it. Now, I'm not saying that the decision I made when he died was everything I do for a living has got to be fun from now on.
Right.
And it's not going to be a full-time chasing the Joneses.
Right.
For the nicer car or this or that. I just want to live and let live and do it without working.
Right.
And at the things that I didn't like doing. And I had to explore how insurance and how selling fit into that. And it didn't. So I was looking for a gig in baseball on some level, didn't know it, when I came across a book. A woman named Margaret was nice enough to give it to me for Thanksgiving, and it was a book about trading cards, baseball cards. It
Right.
was called the flipping the thing. It was the first nostalgia book that I ever read. This was in the 70s. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I read the preface about Tops. And Cy Berger was the uh, president of it all. He put bubblegum cards on the map. He had a good thing going by obligating players in the minors to put their picture on baseball cards contractually. When they reached the majors, they got big money, but initially, just pay them a little $5 check to get their contract and send them on their way, and they can, when they reach.
So they're signing contracts with these guys in farm league,
in the very low minors.
Wow.
Okay, now Tops's philosophy is sign everybody in the low minors,
right?
So they couldn't have happened to them what happened in 1959 when Topps was using a system of getting ex-scouts to evaluate the players in the minors that they would sign and ignoring a lot of people that weren't doing well in the minors, but all of a sudden they reached the majors. They
blew
their
up.
game.
Right.
They blew up, and a fellow by the name of Maury Wills,
okay,
who was a Dodgers shortstop, and when it came time to him making the majors, Topps wanted to use his picture, and he said, "No, fuck you. You didn't want to give me a contract back then,
and I'm not going to give it to you now.
I'm not going to give you a contract back then." So how did that affect Ralph Tycho?
How did it affect Ralph Tycho?
Well, when Ralph Tycho found out about how all this was with Topps, he realized that there would have to be, and there were non-scouts, but personable people, salespeople, going to the minors, dealing with the owners, the general managers, and what have you, and working their way in. Everybody loved Topps. And you would go out and sign as a rep. You would go out to the different minor league teams and sign players, everybody. So when they reach the majors.
Right, because that's also when you're getting them. Okay, so it's kind of like Topps is playing the lottery, aren't they? I mean, what are they doing? What they're doing is as I'm blocking my face with my own camera. I love it. So what they're doing is they're playing the lottery, because when you sign someone for a contract in the minors just to take a picture to put on a baseball card, for one, it's a thrill, right?
Absolutely.
You're a minor league player. You haven't even made it to the majors, yet you're going to be on a baseball card?
When and if.
When and if.
Now I have a when and if.
And you get those guys for really cheap.
Exactly.
Right?
And
you don't know who's going to be a Mickey Mantle. Or, like you said.
But there is a tremendous award. Back in 1985, if you had your picture on a Topps card, you would make $85,000 just from Topps.
Really?
If you're a player. Right. So the reward is there. But like I say, you're going to insult a few people in the Maury Wills age, by not signing them.
Right.
So I wrote a letter to another woman wrote a letter for me because I'm not all that smart, but I have the ideas. And I wrote Cy Berger a letter telling him that I'm on the West Coast, that I grew up in New York, telling him about my baseball card uh, craziness, my baseball card this and that,
Right.
baseball players, how, you know, and the job is to go and meet the players in the minors and meet the minor league coaches who were my heroes when I were a kid. So it was going to be a great job.
Right.
Cy writes back. He says, I'm very interested, but I don't have anything right at this minute. Can you hold out a year or so?
Mhm.
I said, what do I got now? Of course I can. A year goes by, and all of a sudden, I'm covering the California League and the Northwest League for Tops.
Wow.
Break-in points where I got to meet the players on the best of conditions because they're not stars yet.
Right. They're not jaded by success and money and bullshit.
Exactly. That's
The system. They're still. They're in it for a true love of the game.
well, not entirely true. There's the monetary sense, but they're oft times just want to play the game too.
Oh, I think it's anybody that
just
has
want-
a dream, right? If it's a doctor that wants to help people, as they get older, they realize, oh yeah, there's going to be some money there too. Same thing
Right.
with baseball. I think a lot of these guys were probably like you as a kid, like a lot of us as kids, growing up, idolizing these players and going, boy, and playing in a dirt lot and a sand lot.
Absolutely, in the schoolyard, on
Right.
concrete sometimes.
I mean, everybody takes their the stance of their favorite player, right?
Exactly, and you just wanted to be you. I knew it wasn't going to be me from an athletic standpoint, and I took pride in at a young age making some bucks. Um,
The question I got for you is, did you sign anybody that you think that made it? That made it?
Well, I'll start with the only Hall of Famer that I ever signed. So,
Okay.
and that was Junior Griffey.
Oh, there you go.
Signed him when he was 17 years old. We had to send the contract to his dad,
Yeah.
who was
Ken Griffey Sr.
Ken Griffey Sr.
Right.
To have him organized. And I remember the interaction with him like it was yesterday. But I remember the interaction with most of these players, if given this circumstance, even the ones that didn't make it,
Right.
finding out about their dream. And I was generally with the team all day, the day I'd sign them, and generally the work quote got done for me in 25 minutes, because I would say, hi, I'm Ralph Tycho, I represent Tops. I'm here to offer everyone a contract that will give permission to Tops to use their picture on baseball cards when and if you made it. Simple. Okay, I'll cut forward to a few years.
Okay.
I'm with Tops, and I'm kind of used to it. I'm getting on the pass list to for players who have made it. They remember me, and it's kind of fun. And one day, I go to Fresno, California. The only player to sign was a guy named Robbie Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember Robbie, but he was a second baseman, and he was, at the time, he put on some weight, but he was a real wiry guy, about 5'10", and um, I was introduced to him by his manager, um, and I started chatting, and I said, Robbie, we're gonna give you $5 now in the contract, and when and if you make the majors, we're gonna give you big bucks. And he looked at me and he said, when and if I make the majors. Remember, this is A-League ball.
Right.
He's it's high A-League ball in his case, because some teams have the most put the best prospects on it.
Right.
Some leagues, California League, very strong league. If you play in the California League in your first year, yeah, there's a pretty good chance you might have something there. But the way he looked at me, he says, when and if. I'll still remember. There's no when and if. I'm gonna make it. And I looked at him and I said, I apologize.
There you go.
Because I know that the mind is important in telling you what you can and can't do, and that you have the kind of attitude, I'm going to be rooting for you for a long time.
Right.
So it's all day I'm spending with Fresno, all these guys, chatting with guys I had signed the year before in the even lower minor leagues in Oregon and in Washington. But by the end of the day, and he'd seen me a few times, sitting on the bench, talking to guys and what have you, he comes up to me and he says, apology accepted. Puts his hand out. I said, I promise you one thing. I will never stop rooting for you, and I will never bother you for anything.
Wow.
And we became very, very close. It's an interaction that's worth sharing. Yep. Because it taught me you don't discount a person's dream.
Right.
You don't use words to, when you reach the majors. I never use that sentence without not putting in when and if. When you reach the majors, we'll pay you big bucks.
Right.
So, and it's all how people want to be treated. They don't want to be discounted. And I had many years of doing it. I did it from 1983 to the mid 90s, and I got to meet a lot of my boyhood heroes. And when it came time to me doing podcasts, I have many acquaintances that have been on my podcast.
Right.
So it's many look back on those days when I signed them. Many were coaches and managers when I got to know them. Mark Littell was a minor league pitching coach with Stockton when I met him, and he ended up doing the forward. One of the people who wrote forwards, Peter Golenbach, was the other one. Mark Littell, because of our ongoing relationship, felt that he'd honor me and do a forward for my book. And what is my book? Comfortably Zoned in a Vat of Pie Tar, that I co-wrote with the guest hockey writer George Grimm. Wrote a baseball book with me, and he's going to be on at 12:15, and he's going to have Jerry Hack, another hockey writer who was a former goaltender, minor league goaltender, and I've talked to both of them at the same time on podcasts. You're in for a treat. In for a treat. George has become a podcaster himself, so that he's going to run this interview when we get Jerry Hack on.
Okay, that'll be cool.
And
we'll just be able to sit in the passenger seat and enjoy the ride.
I really look forward to that. And
so I'm wondering if that's one of the cards that looks like his rookie card. And then we're talking about Robbie Thompson. So.
Well, yeah, it could be any of them. I don't remember what particular year that was. But
looks like 87, 86, 87.
That, as a matter of fact, that could be his rookie card.
There you go.
And that was a thrill. Watching the players develop that you've had some sort of personal contact with.
Right.
Some sort of looking them in the eye, and so they know what you're going through, and you know what they're going through.
Hey, I've got a great idea, Zig. This is a perfect time. When we talk about Tops, we talk about some of these stories. We're all kids at heart, right? So what I'd like you guys to do is collect your card. Right there on your screen next to Zig is your first rookie card. You get a Robbie Thompson Tops rookie card right there. Just by watching this show today, you started your collection off right. And so every time we talk about one, I want you to grab the card and put it in your little stash there. And we can reminisce. We can trade. Maybe at the end of the season, we could trade cards. We can see what's happening. But there you go. That's your little top segment for the day.
Beautiful. And I'll have more of them as time goes on, because I had some great experiences. I had some experiences, good and bad, and I'll tell you about them too. One of them was with a player at the time, Gary Sheffield, and I wrote about it. And here's a little homework: buy my book on Amazon, and you will you'll get it in 3 or 4 days, and you could read about the Gary Sheffield story that I write.
And it looks just like this on his screen, so it's up there.
All right,
it's right there on your corner of your screen, guys. Go order it.
Go order it. Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine Tar, which has nothing to do, and George Brett isn't even mentioned. When most people think of Pine Tar, they think of George Brett, but many others are. And I have interviews with managers and players and coaches and minor league players and people who are sons of players.
Right.
I have a number of interviews in the book with that. But basically, it tells a story that George Grimm helped make my interviews on the Comfortably Zoned podcast come to life, made it a book, and we combined forces, and it's a great book. So buy it. Pay for the studio dues.
Yeah. Help us offset the cost of our production by going ahead. And believe me, if you get a copy of this book, Ralph would be glad to inscribe it personally for you. So,
well, if you want the book and a personal inscription, don't buy it from Amazon.
Buy it from you direct.
Buy it from me directly. I'll give you a personal inscription. Same price, $25. I'll include postage and what have you. Personal inscription.
And you'll get all the, if you want a copy of this, you want it personally inscribed, please go down wherever you're watching this, wherever podcasts can be seen and heard, at the bottom of this. And please let us know. We'll reach out to you and we'll ship that out to you.
Right. And we will get it to you. And I just want to say thank you. for supporting me, as it were.
There you go. And we're getting close. We're at the top of the 12 o'clock hour. I started a couple of minutes late. I do apologize, folks. It wasn't Ralph here. It was me.
Okay. Well,
but we're here.
That's a punishment fit the crime.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it will.
Okay.
So what else you got going on? We did some baseball. We did some politics. What else is happening in your world? I know you just got a new vehicle.
I did get a new vehicle. It's an old BMW, but there's something about the classy cars, the way they're put together. Little niceties are nice. It's going to fit me. Gone through some changes, and also got a new health club.
Well, there you go.
And I'll give them a shout out. Going to take some pictures, some videos, and give them a shout out on the next
episode. Right on.
Episode that we do. And
cool. That means you get extra clean white dry towels.
Well, boy, am I going to be rewarded.
There you go. So you got the new car.
I got a new car. Things are going pretty well from that standpoint.
Right. And the weather has been cold, sir. Very, very cold.
Unbelievably cold.
It's like we're in California. What the hell's going on?
I realized that the weather in Northern California is generally colder than in Southern California, but it is what it is.
We've been seeing tornado warnings and stuff.
Right.
It's all of a sudden my phone will start blaring and saying, "Hey, you got a tornado warning," and I'm like, "No, Annie M." I don't have a tornado warning. What do you mean? I'm in California. I thought I didn't have to worry about things like that.
Hey, the day we don't have to worry about things in general will be a nice surprise day. Nice surprise day. Hey, Paulie, tell me about your music that you listened to as a kid so I could get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. So it really depends on what year you're talking to me about. But most of the time, when I became aware of music, it was pop. It was, what do they call it? Bubblegum pop.
Right.
It was things like Donny Osmond and Leif Garrison or whatever his name was from the 70s. It was all like I just heard a song the other day. It was the Bay City Rollers, and it was a Canadian rock band that was so pop that when I heard the song, it instantly, it transcended me back to those days. But I literally can remember walking in the rain to a friend's house with my new album to play it. And it was so horrible. Now, I couldn't even make it all the way through the song. I got about halfway through the song and go, oh my God, I used to love it. Used to like this. Yuck. And so it started off that way. And then when I got into grade school and stuff, probably because of the exposure I had, I started listening to R&B and soul. And that kind of evolved, and I started listening, and this is, early 70s, mid 70s. Then it was disco, because disco was big. So I even listened to, when Saturday Night Fever came out, I remember listening to things like the Bee Gees, again, back in the pop. But it was weird because I'd be listening to something like the Bee Gees, but then on the other hand, I'd be listening to something like, instead of pop, it'd be Iggy Pop, or it'd be like Alice Cooper, or it'd be Kiss. It would be some heavy rock that was influenced by my older brother, hearing that. And so I went from like R&B soul or from pop, R&B soul to kind of disco to hard rock, and then here comes the 80s and it's big hair bands and stuff like that. And so I've always kind of followed pop to a certain extent, and then I take a little detour. It seems like on the way to listening or while listening to something, I end up finding something else that really excites me. So it's usually something that's an offshoot of pop.
Okay. Do you have one group or individual that you could say, that's my man? If I had to go on an island, the old
And
thing,
you only
you only had one album.
Right. Wow. If I only had one album to listen to, and I could listen to so that's the other thing, is I grew up in the days of you would listen to an album. You would put an album on, you drop the needle, and then you'd never stopped it until it ended, and then you flipped it over and played the other side. Wow. I think Dave Brubeck, Take Five.
Take Five, yes.
I think so,
puts you in that relaxed mood that you're taking five.
Right.
It could be anything you're doing. Take five to chill out. That's how I'd look at it.
And I would say also John Coltrane, Blue Train. I can listen to certain things over and over so much. Yeah. I can listen to John Coltrane a lot. I can listen to Miles Davis a lot.
Hey, let me give you the Zig in the Zone pick.
All right, cool. Tell me what you got.
Mose Allison.
Mose Allison.
He was, God rest his soul, he died about 5 years ago.
Okay.
He's missed, but he was so whimsical, so prolific, such a great piano player, and got the beat going. He's my man. So, if you're out there, you're looking for new music, a Zig in the Zone recommendation, just like I recommended that dispensary to you.
Right.
Park Social. Can't go wrong. I'm going to have another shout out to this health club, which I am delighted with. So when I talk about stuff, listen, part of the and share. I'd like to hear from you. I like Mose.
Right.
That makes me happy.
Right.
Because I remember when I first started doing podcasts, it was when we were over at John Miller's at FCC.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to a podcaster, can't remember his name right now. He says, what I don't enjoy about podcasting is that you don't get the interaction with your audience. Well, that was 10 years ago. I made it so that my podcast got interaction. It wasn't me just talking. It was the listener listening. And I have a following of X number of people, not many, but X number of people who get it.
They're loyal.
Right.
Right.
And they will be there, and if I don't see their names on my Facebook in response to my stuff, I'm saddened.
Right.
I'm worried, not saddened. I'm concerned. Where's John Doe? Blah blah blah. So that's the kind of podcast network I'm running, and wait until you hear George Grimm and his interview style, because I have to admit that he was not a podcaster. And we wrote the book, and I said, we gotta start getting record of this, verbal record, and now it's going to be mental record or video record.
Right.
So I'm really excited about what we're doing, Paul. I enjoyed chatting with you this morning. We're about to get the guests on, and is that George?
That's everybody, but I'm letting you lead them in. That's okay. You can keep going. I'm doing what I do best, which is a little bit of everything.
What you do best, it can't be described.
Not without getting arrested.
No, well,
I'm telling you now.
The experience of spending one night in jail, though, can be life learning experience because you will know when you don't want to spend another day in jail.
Right.
So, if that's what we're learning, that's what we're learning. So, do we have these guys up?
Yeah, we do. I'm just trying to arrange things so that we can all see everything that's going on. So, sorry to do this to you guys. I'm just doing what I do.
Okay.
I'm trying to get it so that it looks more universal.
George, can you hear me?
He can hear you. I just haven't turned them up. Good morning,
Can you
gentlemen.
hear me?
Let's see how we do.
How we do?
We got a little bit of an echo. Somebody has their monitors
Somebody
up
has
a
their
little
monitor.
as I'm echoing. And just make sure you have your speakers and your microphone pointed away from each other, folks.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Beautiful. Let me introduce George. And he's going to do this as an old-fashioned podcast, as we used to do on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Jerry Hack is your guest. Jerry Hack has been a supporter of Comfortably Zoned. You've been on, Jerry, and take it away, George Grimm, podcaster.
All right. Welcome to Zig In The Zone.
Wow, we were getting a little bit of an echo from you guys. Sorry.
How about me? Am I echoing?
No, I think it might be. No, it's us echoing in one of your guys' speakers. So maybe what we'll do. Let me see here. We'll see what happens here. Hold on a second.
Production on the fly, Paulie B.
I'm doing what I do. Yes, sir.
Superb production on the fly.
Thank you. So we'll see what happens. And it just wants to keep doing this to me. All right. So we're going to change things once again. There we go. I'm just going to go back and forth with you guys. And George, if you can do me a favor, are you able to turn your phone sideways?
No, I can't. I don't know why.
There it goes.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
There you go. Welcome.
No.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
So now I feel better. So if you leave her there, I'll
it
switch it back and forth between you guys and us in studio. So
break a leg, George.
Is that better? Okay.
There you go.
All right. Am I in the right place?
Yes, you are.
All right. Welcome to Zig In The Zone. I'm your guest host, George Grimm, and I'm here with my good friend Jerry Hack, who is a great author. He's a former senior hockey goaltender, and he's a good friend. He's a good guy. Jerry wrote 2 books so far. He wrote Memoirs of a Hockey Nobody, and he wrote the Crazy Life and Times of Rat Fink.
Jack Rat Fink.
Jack Rat Fink, right. They were both very enjoyable, but I really enjoyed the hockey book, Memories of a Hockey Nobody, because I was a street hockey goalie, and he was a street hockey goalie, and he took my dream and he ran with it.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in, guys, again. For some reason, we're really getting a lot of echo, and I think it's probably on George's side. I'm so sorry, George. I think we're getting a lot of echo. Is your mic anywhere near your speaks?
You talking to me?
Yes, sir.
What do you want?
Yes, sir. Oh, I was asking if your microphone is too close to your speakers because you're getting an echo effect. You talk and then it happens again. Sorry.
I'm just using the tablet.
Okay. Let's see if I can change this a little bit, but okay. Sorry.
That's okay. How you doing, Jerry?
So how are you doing, Jerry? hopefully Jerry can hear us. Jerry, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Is that
There you
better?
go.
I turned
That's
my
Paul.
microphone, my camera off.
There you go. And we'll try it again. Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
All right, should I go from the top?
Yeah, well, you can continue on, or you can start from the top, but you sound way better now.
Okay. Welcome to Zig In The Zone. I'm your guest host, George Grimm, and I'm here with my good friend Jerry Hack, who's a former senior hockey goaltender and an author of great renown. He wrote two great books, Memoirs of a Hockey Nobody, and there it is right there, and The Crazy Life and Times of Jack Rat Fink. Now, they were both very enjoyable books, but I really enjoyed the hockey book. It was probably one of the top 3 or 4 hockey books I read in my life. It's a great book because, he was a street hockey goalie. I started out as a street hockey goalie, and he took my dream and a lot of people's dreams and he ran with it. And he became a goaltender. And you got to hand it to him, and he did very well. So, how are you, Jerry? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing very well, and yeah, I didn't start playing hockey till I was 18, and I didn't even know how to skate. And so my 35-year goaltending journey started there, and yeah, it didn't start out the best, but I ended up being able to live my dream and get paid to play, and yeah, and I traveled all over Western Canada and some of the states and Alaska, Yukon. So yeah, it was a great journey, and I don't regret a single day. And I wrote about all the crazy people that I met along the way, and it was and the book has done amazingly well. I when I wrote it, I thought I was just writing it for my family and friends because I was just goofing around on Facebook and telling stories about my playing days, and people kept saying, you should write a book, you should write a book. And
Right.
I was a C student in English in high school, so I didn't know an adverb from a conjunction, and so I had no just like goaltending, I had no clue what I was doing. And
Mhm.
yeah, and then professional writers such as yourself and Perry Lefko and Greg Oliver, they all loved the book and said, to my shock, tell me how well written it was. So, it was, it turned out to be a great thing, and I'm extremely proud of it.
Good. Now, you've also been on this week. Earlier this week, you interviewed by Paul Pascal's
Dreyfus, yes.
Glenn Dreyfus, right?
The Hockey Time Machine. Yeah, I was just
Right.
on Monday, so it was that was a great interview. Glenn is a great guy and a really good interviewer, and really made me feel at ease. So it was a good interview. Should be out in early April, so
That was huge.
watch for it.
And you're also going to be on my Retro Rangers podcast on Friday. We're going to be talking about the flip side of the 1994 Rangers Stanley Cup victory, because the Rangers beat Jerry's Vancouver Canucks, and while all of New York was dancing in the streets gleefully, out in Vancouver they probably turned off the TV and went to bed, and so that's what we want to hear. We want to hear the flip side. What Vancouver went through to get to the finals, and who were the best players and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
that was a great unexpected run, and yeah, I'm gonna enjoy. Well, you're gonna enjoy going over the last 30 years and
and
what that Stanley Cup run was
it,
like. It's
it,
I'm still grieving, George. So it's like,
it,
and then one thing, like a few years after that, both Mike Keenan and Mark Messier were part of the Canucks. So it
right.
took a strange turn of events even after. So we'll have to talk about that as well.
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you that '94 victory was the last I'm going to see in my lifetime. So,
Well, I don't know. They
I'll
got a
leave it up.
shot this year.
Yeah,
They're right up there. So,
yeah. Well,
you know,
the regular season is a lot different than playoff. So, as you well know. So, What I want to ask you about, there's something called the Michigan goal. That's where a player will scoop the puck up with a stick on the blade of a stick, and he'll try to whip it past the goaltender like a lacrosse shot. And I don't like it. I don't think it's fair. If somebody tried to do this on me, I would chase him up the ice, waving my great big goal stick at his head. But that's just me. What do you think about
Excuse me, sorry, breakfast. Um, well, the funny thing is, the guy who originally pulled that off at Michigan was Mike Legg, and he's from here. He's a local boy, and he
it?
plays
Okay.
in the leagues that I played in. And he became a fireman, and he played in the police and fire games. Just a really really good hockey player. Now I personally have no problem with the goal because you have to have a high amount of skill to be able to pull that off, and to do it as at the NHL level, you have to do it in like 1.2
Exactly.
nanoseconds. So
Quickly.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
somebody is always on you, and it's like
Right.
that's that's a very skillful move. And as long as they don't bring the puck above the crossbar, I'm good with it. But the rule that I would like to see changed is that stupid trapezoid where the goalies
Oh,
can't go into the corners to play
yeah.
the puck.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if your goalie's a top-notch puck handler, that should be part of your strategy. That if your goalie's weak in that area, then that's on you. I think I hate that rule. I that would be if I was to get Gary Bettman's job, that would be the first rule I would abolish because I just hate it.
Yeah. Oh, I understand that. I mean, there's been a lot of goaltenders who would go in the corner and shoot the puck out, and some who get caught, and it's their problem. They're either going to be
Exactly. Like
successful or they're not.
I
And
remember the first goalie that I saw who was really strong at playing the puck was Ed Jockerman. And so, you know, it,
I remember
it
him. Yeah.
cost him a few times, you more than a few times, but it benefited his team more than it cost him. I always thought. And so, having a goalie who's a strong puck handler, and like we had Kirk McLean, and we hadn't had a goalie who was a strong puck handler till him, and it completely changed the dynamic of the team. And so, we always had, Richard Brodeur and Arturs Urbe, who were two of the worst puck handling goalies. They couldn't not give the puck away. And so having Kirk McLean back there was just a dream for the defense.
Right. 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 How about now? How about who's in goal now for you? And how's he with handling the puck?
Well, pretty much every NHL goalie's adept at it. Now,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there's any really bad ones at because they learn right from the get go now. And
Yeah.
so, geez, I'm drawing a blank who our goalie is. That's the problem with getting older, George. Like, you lose names when you're surprised with a question. So,
Can you say
um,
that again, Bob?
Thatcher
Uh,
Demko, yeah, he's not bad. He's okay. He can do it. But what I don't understand is how they flip the glove over now. They shoot it like they have their glove this way instead of
yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
I always held it this way, and so I don't understand how they can get any leverage that way, but they
Yeah.
do, and it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
incredible to watch.
Yeah.
Marty Turco was the first one that I saw do that, turn his hand over to
Okay.
play the puck, and he had the nerves of a burglar. He could play the puck better than almost any of the forwards.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Um, as far as the hockey players, do you think um, that the hockey players in general are the last bastion of humility in athletes these days? I mean, baseball players pose at the plate and they flip the bat and they turn triples into singles, and they don't run to first base. And football players taunt and they get penalized, and they have a lot of look at me moments. And basketball's no better. The hockey players seem to be humble. They score their goal, they raise their stick to celebrate. They might high five each other as they go down the bench, but that's it. I mean, there's been a couple. There was a couple of players who used to ride their stick up the ice, and they both got hell for it from their teammates, and they didn't do it anymore. So, what makes hockey players so humble? I guess you could say.
Well, most of them are Canadian, George. So they're probably apologizing. They're probably apologizing to the goalie when they score a goal on him. But no, they still have their moments. I mean, in Ottawa, there a guy took a slap shot from 10 feet out on an empty net, and that was a bit of a hot dog move, and he paid for it. And Morgan Riley from Toronto got a 5-game suspension. And there are guys out there like Nazem Kadri's one. He tends to showboat a little bit, and but you're right. It's the look at me thing is, I've said this for years now. It drives me absolutely nuts. I mean, you watch a NFL football game and a special teams player will make a tackle and he'll burst out of the scrum and do a pose or something, or a guy will get a will get a 7-yard run and he'll and again he just does the pose and look what I did, and so those look what I did moments kind of drive me nuts, because like, okay, you ran for 7 yards, or you caught a pass for 12 yards, like, don't, it's becoming ludicrous. And like I say, just do what Barry Sanders used to do. Just when you run into the end zone, just drop the football or hand it to the ref, and then go back and get your congratulations from the team. You don't need all that. I mean, every once in a while is good, but basketball just lends itself to showboating. The slam dunks and the great alley oops and the plays. I truly think the best athletes, well, maybe not the best. The best are hockey players, because they have to do everything basketball players do, but on ice, on skates. But basketball players are great athletes. The hand-eye coordination and the shooting skill and the plays that they make, it just all it basically running as fast as you can, and then So I really enjoy watching basketball.
And you're so tall too. I mean, if I was that tall, I'd be tripping over my feet all the time. So it helps.
And as for baseball, I mean, the amount of money that those guys are making, they can do anything they want. Just like it's becoming to the point where the players are making so much money that they feel like the law doesn't apply to them anymore, and it's a term called creeping decimalism, where there's just so many zeros after the decimal that it just gives them power over their environment, basically. And so it's and as much as I'd rather see the players get it than the owners, it's becoming absolutely ludicrous how much money they're making.
And it's coming out of the customers' pockets.
Sorry?
And all that money is also coming out of our pockets. Ticket prices are
actually,
like out of the world.
The one thing in NFL that I've learned is that was there 32 teams in the NFL? All 32 teams could play in front of empty stadiums and still make money because of their television deal. So I don't know if the same is for baseball, because baseball is more fan driven, but they play 162 games, or 81 at home, 81 on the road. So that 81 home dates, you're making if you're filling your stadium, you're making an incredible amount of money.
Making a lot of money, at those prices, sure. Yeah. Oh, what's on your mind, Jerry? Ralph said we could sit here and the kibitz, and I think that's a Irish term, right? Right, Ralph?
Yeah.
So what's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to ask you something, George. Your book, the book about the Emil Francis Rangers.
Yes, hold on. I got it right here. We did everything but win.
Yeah. Oh man, I should have brought it down. Here, hang on.
There you go.
The camera's gonna follow me. Yeah.
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah. So yeah, we did
There you
everything but
go.
win.
It's a good book.
So
It's a good book, let me tell you.
yeah, your book is awesome. By the way, I loved it, and
Thank you.
it. And I'm not a Ranger fan, obviously. I'm a Canuck fan, although I have my Minnesota Fighting Saints shirt on today. So
Okay.
just in honor of was it Super Tuesday today? All your primaries
That's
happened
right.
today.
That's right.
Yeah. So uh, we did everything but win. You went and you interviewed Emil Francis extensively for
Right.
this book. I mean, he's quoted throughout the book, and so
Right.
you know, but and he comes off as very pro player. Like he's part of management. He's running the team. He's general manager and he's coach a lot of the time. And
Right.
so he has a job to do in running his players. So he's gruff, but he's extremely fair to his players, and he gives them time off when they need it, or to do personal stuff and
Right.
whatnot. So, but I just read Slapshot by
Okay.
Stan Fischler,
Yes.
and he has a bit of a different take on Emil Francis. So
Okay.
he's a little bit harsher and a little more pro management in Stan's book. Like Stan says, he had a great relationship with him at first, and then it slowly kind of deteriorated to the point where when Brad Park wanted to write a book, Emil Francis demanded to be able to read the manuscript, and have he could kill it if he wanted to,
Right.
and
Right.
and so he says that Emil Francis was a little bit more of an a-hole
Yeah.
than you do,
Well, Emil
and
did the same thing with a book called Year on Ice by Jerry Ashkenazi, which is also one of my favorite books. It's about the 69-70 Rangers, and Emil wanted to read the book before it got published, and Jerry brought out. He didn't bring any names into it, but he brought out that uh, in the training camp there was an episode where there was a lot of women going in and out of rooms and things like that. And Emil read that portion of the book in the locker room in front of the players and in front of uh, the author, Ashkenazi. And he said, this is what you're telling this guy. This is why you shouldn't trust this guy. So, and it was very innocent, really. I mean, what Ashkenazi wrote, but Emil didn't like it. He didn't like his plays being held up to that kind of scrutiny because he was uh, very pro player. I think. I mean, all the players who I interviewed, their biggest regret was that they couldn't win a cup for Emil because they all loved the guy so much, and it's a shame. But he was a very nice man to me. I had no problem with him, and you have to figure too that there were times when Stan Fischler rubbed people the wrong way. Uh,
mm,
there was an episode during the '70s, I guess, where his wife Shirley got into interview Terry Sawchuk when he was in the hospital after he had his accident that led to his passing, and nobody was supposed to be there, but uh, she got in. I think she posed as a nurse or something, and she interviewed him, and that really rubbed the Ranger organization the wrong way as far as her and her husband was concerned. They wouldn't let her or him in the building for a while. So there's two sides of every coin, So
yeah.
I love
Well,
Stan, and I love
I
Emil.
yeah. Well, um, Emil Francis was for the most part, I would agree. He was a good guy and treated his players really well, and just I understand now. Like for years and years, I've always wondered why Stan Fischler is not in the Hockey Hall of Fame, but I think I know now because he rubbed people the wrong way. He ruffled some feathers, and I think people hold a grudge, and so he
Yeah,
didn't. You know, it's a lot of managers. They would like it if the reporters only reported the team's press releases.
right,
So, and
right,
didn't say anything negative about the team or opined on
right,
them. And
right,
so, I know they're walking a fine line because they have to keep good relations with their subjects, but they've got to be able to criticize without,
right.
fear of trying to get like Brian Burke when he ran the Canucks, he tried to get people fired, for writing
Yeah,
negative stuff about the Canucks. And so that is just wrong. That is being a tyrant. So, if you can't handle a little bit of criticism, I mean, get out of the kitchen. So,
yeah,
yeah, but excellent book, George. It was, I really enjoyed reading it. And, yeah, and Guardians of the Goal too. I've read that one, and that is also excellent. So, a lot of goalies that came and went, that played both for Vancouver and New York that I was surprised by. I think I had a list of like 30 goalies who played
yeah,
played for both teams, some in
yeah,
the
yeah.
the old Western League and
Right,
the
right.
Vancouver Canucks in the Western League were at one time the Rangers farm team.
That's
So,
right.
which I
That's right.
didn't know.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah,
your book really opened my eyes to a lot of things about my own team that I didn't
yeah,
know. So,
yeah.
so thank you for writing it, and I hope to read more of what you're going to bring out. How's the Forgotten Blue Shirts coming? Is that
It's got a new name. It's called On Demand and Unbowed. It's I just gave everything to the woman who's going to format it for me last night, and so hopefully in the near future it'll be available on Amazon.
yeah?
Now,
And
talking about reporters and stuff, um, we used to have, I guess, 5 newspapers in New York City for a while there during the Amos days, and maybe a little bit later. We had the News, the Post, the Times, the Tribune, the New Star Ledger, and a couple other ones. And there was some reporters. I'm not going to name any names, but there were some reporters who, as you said, never said anything bad about the Rangers. They always printed what they were told, the press release. And there were other ones, uh, mostly who worked for the Post, who who twisted the knife a little bit. They dug deep and they got more answers and more information out of for the reader. So I can understand what you said. There are both kinds there. I enjoyed the ones who gave me more information, who dug deeper and went behind the scenes to tell me what was really going on as much as they could, because it was still a very closed organization. So
Yeah, well, in this day of the internet, it's hard to keep secrets now. So, or it's harder. And so they
oh
they
yeah,
close ranks even more. And then there's very few players who will speak their mind. I can't think of one really who comes out and says it like it is. They all, we got to give 110%. Our backs are against the wall. They just cliche it to death.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I
yeah,
can't. I cannot stand the between periods interviews now. Like I just can't because they don't
yeah,
say anything. And then
yeah,
the
yeah.
last one I can remember who actually was good at it was Kevin Bieksa, and
Okay,
he used to joke around and say stuff off the wall and off the cuff, and so but they don't do that anymore. As soon as the period is over, I walk away. I go get something to eat, or
yeah,
I just can't stand them anymore. They're too milk toast. They're too vanilla.
right,
It's just like
right.
they just don't say anything worth saying. And so are worth hearing. So I just,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even bother anymore.
Yeah. No, it's true. You can almost predict what they're going to say and how they're going to say it,
Oh,
and when they're going
absolutely.
to say it. So,
Yeah.
um, I have an example for Ralph here. Ralph, you there?
Yes, we are. We are here.
Okay, Ralph is there. Okay,
I'm
Ralph,
listening to you. Are superb, guys. Terrific
Ralph,
interview.
Oh wait. So
I'm
here's
holding
the
this up to
Oh,
thing.
you.
no, that's not the one.
Hold on. Hold
All
that
right,
book. There we
well,
go. Hold it
it's the
up.
one
There
I
we
could
go.
find. I'm sorry, but the blue book that you sent me, my wife and my sister-in-law moved stuff around to me a couple weeks ago, and I can't find it. And
Oh, you'll find it.
move stuff around on the blind guy. I mean, it doesn't
That
make any sense, but it's still up there, and I will find it. But let me tell you, see how thin this is? Maybe 24 pages. This is the last one that they printed. All right, it's all
holy
online now. It's all
Toledo.
online. This is over 500 pages. This was 24 pages. So that's how much the blue book has grown.
Wow.
Okay, over the years. And this was the first one I bought when I was a kid.
No,
Uh,
no, that's the one.
no, that's not. No, that's not the one you sent me. You sent me
No,
one of these.
no, I sent you that one.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, I
look
have to
at
look.
it.
I have to
It's
look.
got the autographs in there.
I have to look. All right. But it's got a nice picture of Roger Gilbert and Charlie Hodge, the goalie. That's Charlie Hodge. That's not Pont. That's Charlie Hodge.
Right.
And the Ranger fan club banner up on the hanging on the in the old garden there. Great picture.
Yeah.
So
That's the one that Val Fontaine was nice enough to not only sign, but go in the dressing room. I had a self addressed envelope and I asked him if he would do it. He got every player in the dressing room to sign it. Jacques Plante, Rod Gilbert, Hatfield. It was that came in the mail and that was trippy. And I'm glad you got to keep it, George,
yeah,
because you've been terrific for me. You wrote first. You wrote an article in the seniors magazine that basically inspired the book, and
right.
we I notice you're very expressive about uh, accepting compliments on the book you wrote with Emil Francis, and you're that way with us. We wrote
Yeah,
with our book. You admit it. We wrote a great book. I
you wrote a
say,
book. Yep, you wrote a book.
um,
Got rave reviews.
right, and rave reviews and a quote by Peter Golenbach that I will take to the grave with me as the first in the first paragraph of my obituary. He said we wrote a brilliant book, and I said,
Hmm.
"Who are we to blow against the wind?"
That's right.
All right.
All right.
Uh,
Let me tell you something about Val Fontaine. I looked him up. He's still alive. He's 90 years old. He's living up in Western Canada. Um, when he played, him and Camille Henry were two of the smallest players in the NHL,
right,
and of course the
penalty
Rangers had
killers.
them. Of course the Rangers had them. So one night, Emil put Camille Henry on the line with John Rattel and Rod Gilbert. Three guys who weren't very tough. They're skilled but not tough. They were playing the Maple Leafs at Maple Leaf Garden. Eddie Shack went out there and knocked them all out. 1, 2, 3, bing, bing, bing. And on the way home on the plane, Francis called Vic Hadfield over, and he sat next to him. He said, "This is never going to happen again. I'm going to put you in the left wing of Rattel and Gilbert, and if anybody comes near them, you beat the shit out of them." And he did. And you know, um, And for all those years, that was a gag line, the goal a game line. And who knew Vic Hadfield, who was put on the line for his muscle and his toughness, would someday score 50 goals. So it was very advantageous to him and the Rangers at the time. And Vic became a Ranger captain. So can't beat that.
I loved growing up at Madison Square Garden. We had the Knicks, we had the Rangers. You could spend your youth there, and it was great. How has hockey changed today that for the better? And I'll ask both of you this, Jerry. How has the game changed for the better as opposed to the worst?
And we'll start off with Jerry. Go for it, Jerry.
How has hockey changed for the better?
Yeah.
Well, it's faster. Like Vic Hadfield could not play in the NHL today. He'd just be too slow. And so what amazes me about the players they all have their nutritionists and their personal trainers, and they are in peak physical condition. And whereas I used to see photographs of Gump Worsley smoking and drinking a beer in the dressing room, and
Right.
players used to smoke and drink, and then over the summer they gained 10 pounds.
Not just
Sorry?
hockey.
Not just
Not
I
just
didn't get that.
hockey.
Yeah. So, they'd gain 10 pounds over summer and work it off in training camp, and they'd use training camp to get in shape. Whereas if you don't come to camp in shape now, you are ridiculed. You are, you are in, you are made fun of, and you're just like, you are the worst of the worst. So, the game is played at a speed now that is almost incomprehensible, and the goaltending has changed. When Bobby Jones saw Jack Nicklaus play golf, he said that he is playing a game with which I am unfamiliar. And I feel that way about the goalies today. I mean, I was a pretty good goalie, and there's just no way that I could hold even a candlestick to these guys. The way they basically play on their knees, and their lateral movement is just incredible, and their flexibility and their reflexes, like these guys are the top 0.00001% of goalies in the world, and they just amaze me, the stuff that they can do. And so, the speed of the game is the biggest difference now. Like, you watch those old classic games, and even from the 90s, the game is sped up from then. And so, it's just, and the speed at which they have to process information, like they just, when to pass the puck, when to hold on to it. Like, you watch Quinn Hughes or Cale Makar and stuff. Their awareness of everybody on the ice at all times is just incredible. Like, it's just, their hockey IQ is just off the charts. So, that's the biggest difference for me.
Sounds like George echoes a little bit of that. What do you add to that, George?
Well, as far as the health of the players, I have to laugh. When I was a teenager, I used to hang around the New Garden and get autographs when the players came out. We knew where they came out. And the Rangers had a player named Phil Goyette, who was a center. And he came out and he was smoking a cigarette and coughing his brains out. And I was just shocked that, this athlete is smoking, it just struck me as very very odd. But as you said, the game has gotten very, very fast lately. It's almost hard to follow sometimes. It moves so fast. And
with that also said, I noticed that too over the years. I mean, I'm of, again, I think I said it earlier, I'm a product of the 60s, child of the 70s. And when I look at it now, it's like, wow, thank goodness technology is catching up too, because they show you all these shots. They able to draw the lines, kind of all the stuff. Like, they show you the plays, they slow things down, they show you different camera views, they bring out illustrations.
Yeah.
There's all these things for the layman that might be just I think George, or I'm sorry, that Ralph was saying it earlier. Sometimes he'll just put on a game as background, and so
Right.
all of a sudden you hear a cheer or something. You're turning around. What happened? What happened? What happened? And it's like, okay, I don't even know when they came out with the instant replay, but it was like in baseball in the 70s. But now that even that advancement is crazy. When you're watching a football game, they will show you, where the 10-yard line is, where their first down is. They will show these different graphics where what way the ball's going, which way the guy's gonna run. I mean, so if the game had to speed up and we had to slow down, I'm glad they actually gave us some technology to support our older selves. So
Yeah, well, back when I was a kid, Ralph will probably remember this. We had a Ranger broadcaster named Win Elliott, and a great broadcaster. And this was before color analysts and before instant replay. So in between periods, he used to act out how the goal was scored with his body. You could come, it made me a D.
Well, even when you go back in baseball, when there wasn't TV, that's
Yeah.
why those announcers were so good. They could paint a visual picture with their words. What was the one watching? Was watching the thing about the Jackie Robinson story about 42, and what's the guy? I want to say his name was Red something.
Red Bomber.
Yeah, Red Bomber. So like you could literally close, even though he had kind of older terminology and he spoke with a little bit of different. You could literally close your eyes and paint a picture with your mind. Some of the stuff they were explaining. So yeah.
He was as good.
How about
as
you, Jerry?
anybody.
What's your favorite old Vancouver memory?
Is that to Jerry?
Well, I'm so glad you asked me that, George, because I have a few, but if you put a gun to my head and made me choose, it would be Pavel Bure's Game 7 overtime goal against Calgary. The Canucks were down 3-1. That was in '94, actually, when they went on to the Cup. And yeah, what was the defenseman's name? His last name was Brown. I sent Bure in on a breakaway on Mike Vernon, and it was overtime. And I was in a bar. with a whole bunch of people, and I was sitting at the bar with my back to the bar watching the TV. And as soon as the pass got to Bure, we all rushed the screen. Like there's like 20 of us just rushed the TV screen, and he scored, and we're all jumping because the Canucks were down 3-1, and so they had come back every game in overtime. They won the Game 5 in overtime, Game 6 in overtime, and Game 7 in overtime. So it was, that was probably the happiest I've ever been in my life. That's one of my favorites.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in a little bit and do what I do as being the referee before we go into overtime, guys. I want to make sure that you guys shout out everything that you've got going on, any appearances you've got going. Where do we get all your contact info? Like, do you guys have a calendar, website? And then also shout out your books. We'll start off with Jerry. Go for it.
Where'd my books
By the
go?
way, Jerry, I'm going to give you some advice right here on air. We love
Memoir of
your
a
books.
Hockey Nobody, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, basically anywhere online. And this book I'm really proud of as well. When I wrote this one, people were bugging me to write more, and I had no clue what to write. And so the idea struck me that a friend of mine who had a ton of crazy stories to tell, what he did when he was a kid. He was a crazy kid. And so I put all those stories into this book. And so it's one of the funniest books people have read. That's what they tell me all the time. And, they say I spit out my coffee. So, and also we've started our own podcast, my buddy Craig Tone Reedy and I. It's called Hockey Books and Storytellers. George has been on, and we're gonna probably have you on sometime in the future, Ralph. And right now, what did I do with this book? This book I'm reading right now, The Last Original Ranger of New York. George has read it. He turned me on to this book. We're going to have the author, Brian Riley, on, as you guys have interviewed him already, and he's a very fascinating guy. And we're we're going to talk to him about this book in a couple weeks. So, and we also have good guests like Stan Fischler and James Duthie from TSN coming on, which is Canada's sports network. So
now, how do we catch your guys' podcast?
It's called Hockey Books and Storytellers, Hockey, Books and Storytellers. It's on YouTube. Every 2 weeks we drop a new episode on Tuesdays. So today is an off week, and we'll have another one next Tuesday. Hopefully with Stan Fischler on, because we're trying to get him.
Cool. Very good.
And right over to George. George, tell us what you got going on in that busy life of yours.
All right. Well, I got I have the Retro Rangers podcast Friday nights. This Friday is coming up with Jerry Hack, and we're going to talk. Like I said, we're going to talk about the flip side of the Rangers' 1994 Stanley Cup victory, and my book on demand and unbound. I had to change the title, and I can't tell you why, but I had to change the title, and I just, sometimes it isn't up there. That's going to be coming out soon. I just gave everything to the woman to format for me yesterday. You can still get We Did Everything But Win and Guardians of the Goal on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble. And after this book comes out, I'm probably going to try to do a collection of my Inside Hockey Retro Rangers columns and try to weed them down. I got like 100 of them out there, and I'm going to weed them down and put a book out of that, unless something else comes along. So that's the story of that.
That's awesome. Over to Zig. Thanks.
Hey, I just want to thank you guys, Jerry and George. This was terrific, and it's indicative of what I've done with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We have interesting and passionate people as guests. And
if I could just interject one thing, Ralph.
Yes.
I've just ordered Comfortably Zoned in Nevada Pine Tar, so that should be coming in a
his sales just spiked.
Now we can pay the rent.
Now we can pay the rent out here. That's a good thing.
Good for you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm dying to get your joke, both of your guys' books. Jerry, I'm definitely going for Rat Fink first. I love hockey, but I'm going to check out the crazy stories of your friend. And then George, I got to get that book of yours too. I have so many books that I just need to dive into. But thanks for being a part of the show today, man.
I have books I haven't even colored yet. So,
because he keeps inside the lines. You know how he is. He just keeps inside the lines.
Very precise about that. All right.
Okay, Ralph, one thing I was on before and I'm on now, probably not be on again. How about a punch card so we can get some free French fries somewhere,
Yeah, or a free jersey, like a sub sandwich or something, right? Don't
we
get something for this?
A Zamboni card. How about that?
Card.
All right.
Ziggy's Burgers.
There we go.
All right. Hey, listen, you guys are an additive to Zig in the Zone. And I just need you to promise me both that you'll come back again and that you had fun.
Yeah, we had fun.
No way.
No way.
You guys can't afford me. I'm sorry. So no. Anytime, call me. I'm available. I'm retired now, so I can do it.
Beautiful. Hey, thanks again. We're gonna wrap
All right,
it up.
thank you. Thanks for having us on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. It was a thrill.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys.
Show number 8, and 8 was the number that Yogi Berra wore, and he wore a mask. So thank you again.
And thanks for having me for the ride, Zig. I really appreciate you.
Paulie, you are the ride.
I am the ride.
You're the E-Ride.
All right, for me, Zig in the Zone, we are out of here, kids. We'll see you next week.
Be well.
Be well.